Hi everyone, fresh out of the ocean here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Squid album, Monolith. This is the second full-length LP from UK post and art punks Squid. If you recall, the band had a very strong showing with their debut in 2021, which also followed the stellar breakout Town Center EP. But like, so what? What makes Squid stand out? Why should you care about this album and stuff? On this record, they're still putting out work that is creative, that is explosive, energetic, and not the type of band to simply live off of the nostalgia for the creative lane that they exist in. And while the post-punk label definitely applied to the wild dance grooves and lead vocals that defined Squid's earlier work, I don't know, it kind of seems like the further they move along creatively, the less they snugly fit into that genre. Even with it being pretty all-encompassing as far as musical styles and influences held within it. I think the band is taking on a lot more experimental and progressive elements with this new LP, and the way Warp Records has embraced them on this project reminds me of some of the big indie calls they were making back in the day with Grizzly Bear. I mean, you really got to be doing something interesting in pop or rock for the king of all electronic music labels to throw a contract at you. And Squid is definitely doing something difficult to define, stylistically and sometimes emotionally too, as the music on this record is moody and introspective, but also I'd say cathartic and demands attention. There are numerous portions that run kind of abstract and obtuse, but by that same token, the record isn't really all that long. It doesn't drag anything out too far. I think the listen to this thing overall was pretty accessible. And a lot of the main instrumental portions of this thing are groovy, they're straightforward, direct, rudimentary, but also Squid can be quite ornate and methodically arranged when they want to be. Monolith is capable of cool, linear, hypnotic rock passages a la Radiohead's In Rainbows, most notably on the track The Blades, where I think Squid really puts their own spin on this with fiery walls of guitar, yelpy vocals, and a sinister horn line that dominates the midpoint of the song. And then there's also herky, jerky, wacko shit on this LP that I would see being more in line with a Primus or Residence record, like on the song Undergrowth. There are also parts where this record conjures some eerie beauty, like with After the Flash, which is exactly the kind of driving and tortured, plotting indie rock I could hear off an early Modest Mouse record, but eventually building up into this maddening, intense, discordant wall of instrumentation with screaming strings and blurting horns adding more to the chaos. And I think there are some more creative and interesting parallels on the rest of the record. There are sections of Greenlight, a blistering cut toward the end of the album, that remind me of the noisy indie freakouts on Pixie's early stuff, while also pulling on some of the creative and angular guitar work of a classic New York band such as Television. But then take all that and ramp it up with this grand instrumentation that gets heavier and heavier as the song moves along. I don't know how much all these reference points are being consciously engaged with, or maybe it's all by chance, I don't know. But either way, this record still combines a very unique set of vibes and influences, and if even that is not enough to impress you, try the closer here, which has all these vaguely foreign grooves and hand percussion throughout the first leg, pairing with some gritty bass lines and mysterious synth noise, and eventually it all launches into these proggy licks and grand group vocals that feel like something out of an obscure Zool or jazz rock record from the 70s, but with kind of a dark, strange intensity to it that feels specific to Squid or other bands that maybe have more punk leanings. The opening track, too, contains a similarly dense rhythmic palette, with a lot more metallic timbres and a really cool 7/8 time signature. Now, I'll say there are some experiments I'm not all that crazy about on the record. After the Flash, I mentioned earlier, the plotting grooves here, I think, do stale out after a while. I think the song could have used a bit more variation across its length, but I'm mostly perplexed with the song Siphon Song, which is a pretty understated rock song with these lead vocals soaked in robotic effects. Reminds me of a few moments in Mogwai's discography where the band would suddenly throw a vocoder vocal into the mix, something like that. And I'm not sure if this sound really complements Squid or this record in general, even if I am impressed with the huge display of instrumentation that we eventually build toward at the finish. Plus, I don't think the tune at the core of this track stands out as much as the huge wall of instrumentation that's trying to deliver it. Point being, a lot of songs on this project have this linear, gradual intensity quality to them. And even if that is pulled off in a very dynamic way, that alone does not a good song make. So I think this track could have used just a little bit more. Outside of that, though, I think the band does a great job of finding a balance between writing that is as compelling as the larger-than-life package it is contained within. Case in point, bring it back to the song Undergrowth, whose refrains of "I'd rather melt, 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 melt" are some of the catchiest on the entire record. Meanwhile, the shimmering strings and massive tubular bells that we hit toward the end of the track are stunning, breathtaking, and remind me of highlights and peaks from Swan's records like To Be Kind and The Glowing Man. So yeah, I think all in all, this record is very solid, very impressive from start to finish. It really puts its best foot forward with Swing in a Dream, as well as Devil's Den, which I think has one of the harshest contrasts on the entire record. The sour, nude, and loose guitars that kick the entire thing off. Yeah, it's definitely a huge change to the freakish and grandiose noise rock in 3/4 at the very end. But yeah, with this record, I think Squid has hit upon something really compelling, really interesting. They've made one of the most unique rock records of the year. Really a roller coaster ride of emotions and mayhem, with a lot of steady orchestrations and song ideas guiding the way. And the way the band's reinvented themselves on this project too, I think is really great. I'm simultaneously excited to hear what the band does after this, while also having not a single clue as to where they could go next. I'm feeling a strong 8 to a light 9 on this one. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Squid, forever.